Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to tell you about the story of what if Love Life of Naruto was full of twists and turns. And this is the episode 2, which consists of flirting skills of Naruto. So if you like the video, please click on like button and share the video with your friends and subscribe to our channel. So now my friend Alexander will tell you the story. Here we go.
Friday had been a disaster. Sasuke completely ignored him, and then there was the whole ordeal with Sakura. And now that everyone knew about the kiss, Sasuke and Sakura would start dating. And become prom king and queen. And date all through college before moving in together. And on their whatever anniversary Sasuke would propose, and of course Sakura would say yes, and they'd get married and have 3 kids. And Naruto. Kiba snapped him out of his inner turmoil as they walked to school. Look, if you're so upset about it that you're going to cry, then maybe you should stay home today. The blonde raised a hand to his cheek to find it was wet with tears. Quickly wiping them away, he shook his head. No, I want to go. I've had the whole weekend to overthink this. I have to just follow the list and I'll get through it. Even if he decides to marry her and it was just a kiss. Dude, you've done more than that with random guys in a bar. One time, Naruto crossed his arms. That was one time, and I couldn't even enjoy it because I was sure we were going to get kicked out. Whatever, my point is, you've dated people and Sasuke's dated people. No, he just sleeps around. He never hangs out with the person afterward, like with Sakura. Not the point I'm trying to make. The brunette waved his hands in the air. The only reason she blurted that out was because I was calling Sasuke out for being gay, or I guess bi technically. Why were you doing that? Naruto grabbed Kiba by his shirt collar. Did you tell him about me? You didn't, did you? No, of course not. Let go. When the blonde finally released him, he decided to continue. I was grilling him for being jealous. Jealous of what? Of you. You were sitting with Shika and Sasuke was jealous. What? No way. But the kiss. Yes way. And forget the kiss. Afterwards Sasuke told us he was drunk when they kissed. Oh. The gears started working in the blonde's head. So if Sasuke is drunk, he'd just kiss anyone. Like him, for example. Dude, focus. Kiba snapped him out of it again. Sasuke likes you, this is proof. He was jealous of Shika. And the only reason Sakura yelled out what she did was because Sasuke wasn't denying it. Naruto's eyes widened. Really? Yes. But what if it was just the brunette groaned. Fine, just move on with your list. That whole laughing thing was just stupid. Even you know that. So just move on to the next step. But, the blonde pouted. But the next step is flirting. I don't know how to flirt, and besides, wouldn't this be too obvious? Yes. Kiba grinned at him. And that's why it's perfect. Sasuke will totally notice and then he'll confess. Besides, the brunette slung an arm around the blonde. I'll teach you how to flirt. Sasuke grumbled as he went to get his backpack ready. He was going to be late for school because his stupid dad wanted to talk to him about Sakura. What kind of a parent would just start setting you up with people? He had no right to be involved with his love life. And Naruto, that stupid blonde moron. How could he just smile after hearing that? Was he with Shikamaru now? Was Shika so entertaining that he couldn't care less that Sasuke kissed Sakura? Even if it was a drunken mistake, the blonde didn't know that. He could be madly in love with the bitch and the idiot wouldn't even care. He threw his backpack across the room, giving up on the folder that wouldn't fit. Should we be looking into anger management for you, little brother? His older brother smirked, leaning on his doorframe. Get out, Itachi. Itachi took that as an invitation and entered the room. What's the matter? Did your boyfriend find out about your girlfriend? Sasuke spun at him like a predator ready to attack. Shut up. Why are you even here? You have that apartment with your boyfriend that dad got you. Well, tell him about your own end. We're not dating. Really? You haven't confessed yet. The older Raven shook his head. Sasuke, if you don't do something soon, father will have you married to that girl by the end of the year. You think I don't know that? Sasuke sat on his bed. He really wanted to punch something. He just took my car away and said I'll get it back when I'm driving Sakura to our first date. Wow, he must be really serious. Itachi took the Raven's backpack and placed random folders and books into it before throwing it on the bed. Come on, I'll give you a ride. You'll be late otherwise. The young Raven eyed the other suspiciously. What are you trying to do? Itachi gave a slight shrug and motioned for Sasuke to follow him out. They got in the car and as they started driving Itachi turned to the Raven. So, tell me, what is Naruto doing these days? I don't want to talk about it. That's fine. Itachi turned at an intersection and Sasuke looked at him in confusion. Don't worry, I'm just taking another route. It will probably take longer, but if you're late I'll just tell them it was a family emergency. The young Raven groaned, throwing his head against the window. So this was what he was trying to do. He's fine, the same as always. Really? Somehow I don't really believe that. He is. Just sometimes, he's been acting weird. Like yesterday. Sasuke grimaced at the memory of it. Last 2 days actually. He wouldn't stop laughing around me and it's probably my fault so. What did you do? Nothing. The young Raven turned to the window. I winked at him and I think I scared him off. But I thought he might be into me. Itachi nodded. So you're this upset because he was laughing. Isn't that what Naruto does anyway? Yes, but this time it was different. Sakura blurted out that we made out and he just smiled at me. What would you have wanted him to do? The older Raven turned towards the younger. Please tell me you weren't angry earlier because of this. Why shouldn't I be? He could have at least frowned or something. Instead of looking like he was ready to congratulate. Sasuke. Itachi stopped the car and pinched the bridge of his nose. Are you telling me after 12 years of knowing him you still don't understand why he smiles at everything? Yeah, because he doesn't have a care in the freaking world. Because he can't have a care in the world. Just because you and the people around you all like Naruto doesn't mean others do. In fact most people hate him. I know. No, you obviously don't. He can't be upset that someone doesn't like him because they're not supposed to. People hating him has become normal for him. So what's he supposed to do? Cry or get angry every time someone tells him they don't like him? The only thing that would accomplish is pity or more hate. Okay, I get it. Sasuke opened his door and stepped out. He didn't want to hear anymore. I'm walking to school. As he set off in the way he knew his school to be, he noticed Naruto and Kiba ahead of him. All of a sudden Sasuke felt like crap. Itachi shouldn't have been the one to tell him that. He should have known. He should have thought of it himself. And what's worse he ignored the blonde for it. I'm a jerk. He sped up to catch up to the other two when he saw Kiba drop his arm around Naruto. He knew he shouldn't feel jealous, nothing could ever happen between the two, but he did. Speeding up even more he came to stand next to the blonde. Naruto gave a girly shriek, which he later insists wasn't that girly, and jumped further into Kiba's arms. Sasuke. What are you trying to do? He was cut off as Kiba pushed him a little too hard onto Sasuke, having the two fall on the ground. Sasuke lay on the ground with his arms around Naruto's waist and the blonde's lips just inches from his own. Said blonde had his elbows on the ground on either side of Sasuke's head. The Raven was so close, he was starting to lean forward when something caught his eye on the blonde's arm. You're bleeding. Huh? Naruto shook his head like he had been in a trance. Looking at his elbow he noticed blood speckling his shirt. No way. He jumped up and pulled his sleeves up and sure enough his wounds were bleeding again. They had just scabbed over and the blonde thought it would be fine to not wrap them in bandages and look what happens. This is all your fault. He turned, pointing an accusing finger at Kiba. Before the two could argue Sasuke stood and took the blonde's arms, inspecting the wounds. He hadn't really gotten a good look at them before. Just a few of the scabs had been scraped off. It's not that bad. You just need a band-aid. Turning, he looked in his backpack to find his extra band-aids, silently thankful that they hadn't fallen out this morning. Here, I'll do it. As gentle as possible, Sasuke placed the band-aids on the blonde's arms. When he finished he looked up to see Naruto's eyes fixed on where his arm was being held. Naruto. The blonde snapped his gaze up before pulling his arms free. Thanks, let's go. He turned to Kiba, pushing him slightly. Sasuke just cursed under his breath and followed the other two. Just as they stepped onto the school grounds Sakura was next to Sasuke. Since everyone knew about them kissing, she decided it would be just fine to clutch onto the Raven's arm. Said Raven tried pulling away, however the pink-haired girl was locked on like a leech. While Sasuke was trying to deal with Sakura, Naruto pulled Kiba to the side. Why did you push me earlier? It was flirting, the brunette whispered. No it wasn't. The blonde's voice dropped to match his friend. Yeah, it was. You two almost kissed. It was totally working and then you had to move away. As Naruto tried to think of a comeback when Sasuke had once again materialized next to him. What are you whispering about? Nothing, the two friends said in unison. Sasuke just shook his head not believing a word. Naruto, can I talk to you? The raven looked to the girl hanging from his arm. Alone. Oh, okay, well I'll just be over here. Sakura finally let go and walked maybe a foot away from the raven. Sasuke rolled his eyes and pulled the blonde away from everyone. As they walked behind the school the raven groaned, not sure what he was doing. Naruto just leaned against the wall and slid down, sitting on the concrete. After pacing for a minute the raven joined him, sitting shoulder to shoulder. I'm not ignoring you, if that's what you thought. The raven looked at the blonde who just nodded. Naruto knew he was supposed to be flirting but he didn't know what to do. Sasuke continued. And that kiss, or makeout or whatever. I don't even remember it. If Itachi hadn't walked in and told me the next day, he said I looked too out of it to just be drunk, I wouldn't really doubt if she had. Sasuke froze as an arm wrapped itself round his shoulders. As the raven turned to the blonde, their faces were again inches apart and Naruto just smiled awkwardly. They stayed frozen like that until the bell rang and the blonde gave an awkward chuckle and patted Sasuke's back before removing his hand. Well, better get to class. He stood quickly before heading back to the front of the school. Sasuke sat frozen for another second before getting up to go after the blonde. What happened? Kiba asked as a panicking blonde joined him in the courtyard. I can't do it. Naruto shook his head. I can't flirt Kiba, I suck at it. I'm just terrible. I give up. Let's just move on. No, you can do this. The brunette saw the raven walking over in a hurry, obviously looking for the blonde. He's coming. Walk towards the entrance and sway your hips. Naruto was about to protest but Kiba pushed him away as Sasuke came to stand next to Kiba. The blonde stumbled a bit before regaining his composure and walking away with what he hoped was a sexy sway of his hips. What is he doing? The raven asked Kiba who had just face-palmed. Choji stood next to him also examining the blonde's walk. It looks like he's limping. Sakura said as she reattached herself to Sasuke's arm. Huh, maybe he had sex. Choji shrugged before following the blonde into the school. Sasuke turned to Kiba. He didn't, did he? I mean, he wasn't limping before. The brunette just shrugged and followed Choji. It was because of the fall. That's why. Ha told himself. Who cares? Sakura rolled her eyes. Come on, let's get to our first period. Naruto didn't see Sasuke again until lunch. He was partially thankful for that, after the previous disasters. How was he supposed to flirt? Sure he would be touchy-feely and cuddle with his boyfriends but that was after the relationship was established. How did you flirt with someone you weren't already dating? As Sasuke waited in line to get his lunch, Kiba slid next to him. Okay, so the swaying hips thing wasn't your best work. But we can still fix this. What are you talking about? Shika asked as he sat down next to the blonde. You can't sit there. It's Sasuke's seat. Kiba shooed the boy to sit across from the two of them. Naruto is flirting. Oh, is that why you were limping to class? Choji thought you had sex. Shika shrugged. He's going to do better this time. Kiba glared at the spiky-haired brunette before turning to the blonde. Okay, when he gets over here lean into him and bat your eyes. That's not flirting. Shut up. The brunette turned to Shikamaru. What do you know? Why are you even sitting here? Don't you usually sleep through lunch? Well, maybe I wanted some company today. Shikamaru looked at the blonde and smirked when the raven glared at him, taking his seat next to said blonde. Shikamaru, Sasuke muttered. That's not fair, there's no more room for me to sit next to Sasuke. Sakura complained, the raven just shrugged and let her sort it out herself. Naruto. Get up. Crap, the blonde was going to give in. Sasuke just knew he would. Just leave him alone. He snapped at her. Sit somewhere else. You don't need to be attached to me every second of the day. We're not dating. Sakura froze for a moment, tears brimming in her eyes. Before she could do anything Naruto stood up. You can have my seat Sakura. The blonde hated it when people would cry. He never knew what to do. Thank you, Naruto. Sakura took his seat, not a trace of tears in her eyes. Sasuke was furious and glared at the blonde as he sat next to Shikamaru. Naruto just shrugged and offered half of his sandwich to the brunette next to him. Thanks. Why don't you just buy something instead of stealing from someone else? The raven ground out. Shikamaru just shrugged. I would, but Naruto doesn't mind, do you? The blonde grinned at the other. Nope, enjoy. Sasuke has a point though. Sakura decided to butt in the hopes of getting on Sasuke's good side again. Naruto isn't like us. He probably needs to be careful with what he spends money on and you're just taking his food. Who knows if he'll. Are you saying he's poor? Kiba glared at her. Yes. The pink-haired girl smiled, completely oblivious of the atmosphere around her. She turned to Sasuke only to be met with his glare. What? Wasn't that the point you were trying to make? Shika shouldn't be taking Naruto's food because he doesn't have much. The raven was getting ready to put her in her place but the blonde interrupted him with an awkward laugh. So, anyways. Oh wait, were you trying to get Naruto to admit he likes Shika? Sakura suddenly yelled as if it had all finally clicked together. What? Shikamaru looked to Naruto. Naruto's eyes were wide as saucers. What? He turned to Sasuke before turning to Shikamaru. I don't like Shikamaru. I mean, I like you as a friend but not anything more. Okay good. The spiky-haired brunette nodded. Because I'm not interested in you in that way. Naruto gave an awkward smile and nodded. Good, so. Naruto. Sasuke stood abruptly. Can I talk to you? The blonde nodded and stood to follow the raven but was pulled by Kiba. Wait, you forgot this. The brunette put nothing in his hand and waited for the raven to walk ahead a bit more. You're not giving me anything. I know, shut up. The brunette whispered. I just wanted to remind you to bat your eyes. Remember, flirt. Naruto groaned as he continued to follow Sasuke out into the hall. When they were alone the raven turned to the blonde and hesitated. That wasn't what I was saying or implying, about you being poor, cause you're not. You don't have your parents but they left you money and the government gives you a stipend and. Sasuke, I know. Sakura is just, Sakura. She says what she wants and I mean she does have a point. I mean, I have enough that I can share a sandwich with someone but probably from your perspective I look. You don't. The raven jumped in. Look I'm sorry. Naruto shook his head. You have nothing to be sorry about. I told you I know you don't think I'm. No, I mean, about Shikamaru. Oh that. Yeah that. We noticed the day before, and Choji said you were spending a lot of time together and. The blonde gasped as realization hit him. Wait, you don't think I actually like Shika, do you? You don't need to act like that. Sakura outed you and Shika rejected you, and that's fine, I'm sure there are other people out there that would like you even more than him. Yeah, I know. Naruto giggled to himself. What's so funny about this? Oh, I just think it's cute how you're coming to my comfort, even if I don't need it. The blonde rapidly blinked his eyes for a few seconds. A light blush dusted Sasuke's cheeks but he dispelled it with a cough. Yeah well, when the guy you've been crushing on for 2 years breaks your heart. Oh geez Sasuke, get the hint. I'm not trying to awkwardly brush it off or just deny it to save face. I really don't like Shika in that way. We're just friends. Naruto leaned towards Sasuke and started to blink again. The guy the first like is someone else. Oh. The raven tried to keep his heart from soaring at the words. It didn't mean the guy was him. So now that we've got that cleared up, is something in your eye? Huh. The blonde continued to blink. You keep blinking, is something. Oh, yeah, there was. Naruto gave an awkward laugh and stopped his blinking. Haha, but it's gone now so, let's get back to lunch. The blonde took off back to the cafeteria followed by a chuckling raven. The moment he entered the library for study hall, the designated teacher, Ebisu again, glared at him. I want you in the back. As the blonde nodded and walked towards the farthest table with his friends, Ebisu spoke up again, by yourself. You can't do that. Sasuke glared at the man. What reason do you have? If he sits with his friends he will talk. That's what he always does. Everybody does that. Kiba yelled out. Then nobody gets to sit with their friends. Ebisu seemed to be getting out of hand. All of the students lined up and he started creating a seating chart so no one would be near their friends. As they stood on the side, Shika slid next to Naruto as Sasuke was seated at the same table with Sakura and was now arguing with their teacher. "What's Kiba been telling you to do?" The blonde side glanced at their teacher before deciding to answer. "He's been teaching me how to flirt with Sasuke." "He calls that flirting." The spiky-haired brunette shook his head with a chuckle. "Ignore him. I don't even know why you would choose him to listen to on that topic." "Okay, so who do I listen to?" Naruto threw his hands up in the air in frustration. "What am I supposed to do? I'm not really one to help either, but I'd say look at what other couples are doing in school and try to copy them." The blonde pouted and shook his head. "I should just give up and move on." Shikamaru sighed. "No, you and Sasuke belong together. Try the laugh and arm grab." When the blonde gave him a confused look, he decided to elaborate. "When he says something funny and you laugh, touch his arm." "Does that really work?" The brunette shrugged. "It's better than whatever Kiba told you." The last bell rang and Sasuke waited for Naruto to pack up so they could walk together. He wasn't sure what was happening with the blonde. It was just one weird or awkward occurrence after another. Maybe he didn't have a very good summer, or something was bothering him. He just wasn't acting normal. As they walked out of the school, the Raven spotted his brother waiting for him, leaning against his car. In a split second, Sasuke beelined to the right, dragging the blonde with him. "What are you doing?" The Raven shook his head. "Nothing, Sakura was over there and." "Oh, did she see you?" The blonde started to turn, but the Raven grabbed him by the shoulders, forcing him to look at him. As he dropped his arms and gave an embarrassed cough, Naruto started to laugh and rested his hand on Sasuke's shoulder. "Man, you're acting really weird." When the Raven didn't laugh or say anything, the blonde dropped his hand only to have the other catch it in his own. "I'm the one who's acting weird. I'm not the one that kept staring at me. Or laughing. Or everything else you've been doing these past few days. I don't understand what you're trying to do. Do you need help? Is something wrong? Did I do something?" Naruto was looking anywhere but at Sasuke. He was being caught and he couldn't even escape because the Raven wouldn't let go of his damn hand. Just then someone caught his eye, walking toward the two. "Your brother." "What about my brother?" "He's here, to give you a ride." The blonde nodded in the direction Itachi was, and the second the Raven turned his head he pulled his hand free. "I'm fine, Sasuke. I'm sorry that I'm so weird. I'll see you tomorrow." "Wait, he'll give you a ride too." But the blonde was already leaving in a sprint. "What's that about?" his brother asked as he finally reached the younger Raven. Why did you have to come here?" "Because you don't have a car right now." Itachi smirked at his brother as they made their way to the car. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt anything," but Naruto seemed terrified. "Shut up." Sasuke got in the car and slammed the door. "I don't need you butting into my life. It's hard enough as is." "Why is that?" The older boy chuckled. "Are you not enjoying his flirting?" "What?" "Well, when you told me that he was laughing all the time, I figured he might be trying to flirt with you. And just now confirmed it." "How did that confirm it?" "Well, he was trying to do the laugh and arm touch." Sasuke glared at his brother and told him once more to shut up. As they sat in silence the rest of the ride, the Raven went through all of the blonde's odd doings through the day. It all made so much more sense that he had been trying to flirt, maybe. With Naruto you never knew what was what. He couldn't just assume. Flirting just wasn't his thing. It was ruining everything. Sasuke thought he was a freak or a weirdo. And he was mad at him now. Naruto was beginning to have doubts about this list. Or maybe you just suck at attracting another guy. No, that couldn't be true. If it were, he would have never had a boyfriend. And he had. More than one, in fact. And they were all attracted him. So it had to be the list. Or maybe it was just Sasuke. After all, he's not just your typical run-o'-the-mill guy that this list was created for. Damn it. The blonde cursed as he jumped out of bed. That asshole's immune, isn't he? Even so, he wasn't going to stop. Seeing this to the end was the only thing Naruto had right now. And the next one seemed so simple. Be supportive of his interests. There's no way I can screw that up. I'm already super supportive. There was a banging at his door that snapped him out of his inner turmoil. Yeah, Kiba, hold on a sec. I'm almost ready. You better be ready in 2 minutes or you're walking to school alone. The brunette shouted through the door. Naruto rolled his eyes and opened it for him. You're still in your PJs. 2 minutes. You said so yourself. The blonde ran to his room to change. Don't think I won't time you. Kiba took out his phone, setting his timer for 2 minutes. He had it all planned out. Dinner at the new Italian place that opened. Afterwards an old French romance movie to set the mood. End to end, a light show in the park. Reservations were made, tickets bought, even the best spot for viewing was sectioned off. It was the perfect date. There was even an itinerary and time schedule. Sasuke was furious. What was his father thinking? He didn't even want to look at Sakura, and his father had already planned their first date. This was insane. I'm not doing this. That's fine. His father took back the itinerary, shocking Sasuke. If you have something else planned we can. I'm not going out with her. She's. Sasuke, please. This would be a great step for the company and the Harunos are very instant on it. Fugaku sighed. I understand that you are not entirely fond of this idea. And I know you think I'm being pushy and planning your future for you. But if you two were to marry, it would be an immense contribution to the company. And although I will not force you to marry someone you do not like, I cannot just accept this. You haven't even tried to get to know her. I tried all summer. And what I've gotten to know is that I don't like her. One date. Just go on this one date and then, if you still feel the same, I won't press the matter further. Sasuke turned his glare from his father to the ground. That was the best proposition he could have gotten. Just go on the date, get his car back, and then tell his dad that he didn't like her. It would solve his Sakura problem for good. The only issue was that there was no way Sakura would keep her mouth shut about being asked on a date. And he was already being a jerk to Naruto. The last thing he needed was for him to think he was interested in Sakura. The blonde wouldn't even question it, or fight for him. It's like Itachi said, he's used to rejection. No, I can't do it. His father shook his head. Sasuke, please. I'm only asking you go on a date and see if any feelings arise. I can't. The raven ground out again. I will have you know, Sasuke, that you are being very unreasonable. Without another word, his father left his room. Sasuke. Naruto yelled, waving the raven over. Sasuke almost smiled. Naruto seemed to be back to his normal self after the other day. Naruto, I want to apologize for. Yeah, whatever. The blonde slung an arm around the other. Listen, I just want you to know that you can do anything you set your mind to. Okay, so maybe he wasn't back to normal. Kiba shook his head and pulled the blonde off the raven. That's not it, you moron. What do you mean? I'm being supportive. What are you two up to? The raven glared at the brunette. Nothing. Just a project we're working on. The blonde gave an awkward grin, and when the raven wouldn't stop glaring he looked to Kiba for help. Oh yeah, a project. The brunette smiled, proud of himself. Naruto wanted to smack him. It's for our psychology class. We have to see how encouragement affects people. Yeah, and also the opposite. Yeah, but Naruto is doing it wrong. Kiba elbowed the blonde. You have to pick one thing to encourage, not just in general. The raven almost believed him. But then he remembered that in a group project Kiba doesn't do shit. Okay. The raven smirked. In that case, encourage me to do something, Naruto. The blonde leaned back as Sasuke leaned into his personal space. Well, is there anything you need encouragement for? The raven pretended to think for a second. Well, I've got no problem keeping my grades up. I'm not part of any sports team or club. I got early acceptance to the university of my choice. I guess there isn't anything to encourage. The blonde frowned, except, the person that I like seems to be completely clueless. Naruto lost his balance while leaning back and fell. What? Then Raven looked conflicted for a second before shake his head and chuckling. Nothing. I'm just messing with you. The blonde took the hand that the raven offered and got back on his feet. Come on, clueless, the bell already rang. Naruto nodded and the two started walking to class, leaving a shocked brunette to gape at the two. I underestimated how much of a moron Naruto really is, he muttered to himself as he started walking to his first class. There was nothing. Whatever Sasuke wanted, he got. There was no goal to be supportive of, and what interests did he even have? He did good in school, but he didn't really care whether he got good grades or not. He was great at sports but didn't join any teams. He liked movies but didn't have favorites. He played video games but wasn't obsessed. He liked reading but didn't care for discussions or clubs. Naruto groaned, hitting his head on the lunch table. What drives you? Who are you talking to? The raven smirked from next to him. Naruto, that's enough. Kiba sighed. Just give up on this one. Move on, man. Are you two talking about your group psychology project? The raven chuckled. Wait, Choji looked at the two. We don't have a psi. Choji. The brunette slammed his hands on the table. You have a test next period, right? The chubby brunette blinked away his shock. Yeah, but I don't see how that. I don't think you're going to pass. I've studied a bit. Sure you have. Kiba nodded, smirking at the other now. But are you really ready for the test? I mean, are you 100% sure that you'll pass? Maybe you. Yup, I'll pass. So anyway. But you can't be sure. Not until you've taken it and gotten back your score. I mean, how much did you really study? Not much considering it's an open book test. Choji smirked. Kiba froze a second before slumping back in his seat. Naruto, I think we're going to fail. We don't have a, oh forget it. Choji shook his head and returned to his lunch. The blonde smirked, whispering to Kiba, or maybe not. Kiba bit his lip before getting up and grabbing the blonde by the arm. Come on. Where are you two going now? Sasuke asked. To make out. What do you care? The brunette stuck his tongue out at the raven, who was now giving him his best death glare. When they were in the hall and not many people were around them, Kiba pushed Naruto against the nearest wall and leaned in close to him. Whoa Kiba. The blonde put his hands up between the two, ready to push the brunette away. You weren't serious. Right. I'm not making. Shut up. What's the next thing on your list? Naruto let his arms drop and gave him a confused look. Why? Because you're moving on. This isn't working for you. How can you support his interests when the idiot has none? Kiba paused a second. Scratch that, he might have one interest but you're too clueless to notice it. The blonde opened his mouth then closed it. Then tell me. No, we're moving on. What's next? I don't know Kiba, my list is at home. Fine then, from tomorrow. But I want to try this out. And since you know. Naruto, I can tell you but you won't believe me. I will, I swear. Please Kiba, this isn't about the list anymore. I mean, of course Sasuke has interests but I don't know them, which can only mean that I don't know Sasuke. And if I don't know Sasuke, how can I expect to be with him? The brunette groaned. It's you. He's interested in you. Naruto paused for a second before rolling his eyes. Seriously Kiba, I'm being sincere here and you're. You see, I told you. You don't believe me. The brunette threw his arm in the arm. Fine, just move on from that list. It isn't helping. Naruto glared at his friend and shook his head. I thought you really wanted to help. I do. Well stop. I get that you think that Sasuke is in love with me but you don't know that for certain. And because of that you're getting agitated because I'm taking my time with the list. Well, that list is all I have right now. You have me. And look at how much OS a help you are. Kiba blanched before returning to his anger. Fine. The brunette turned away from the other. I hope that list will be there for you when you get rejected. He wanted to take the words back the second they left his lips, but when he turned around Naruto was already halfway down the hall. I didn't mean it. He won't reject you. I was just being, Kiba groaned, leaning against the wall. I'm an idiot. Naruto was skipping study hall. This wasn't like him, he never skipped. At least never the classes Sasuke had with him. As Kiba came in looking like he accidentally kicked a dog, the raven knew this was his fault. What did you do to him? Leave me alone. The brunette buried his head in his arms. Not until you tell me what you did. Sasuke, just leave him alone. Sakura leaned into the raven. Don't you want to ask me anything? No. Now shut up. He glared at the pink-haired girl before turning back to the brunette. Tell me. What are you? His boyfriend. Kiba snapped at the raven, who now had a shocked look on his face. Oh no, you're not. So, I don't have to tell you anything. Whatever happens between Naruto and me is not any of your business. Sasuke frowned. What the heck was going on? The raven decided to ignore him the rest of the class. His only hope was that Naruto wouldn't skip chemistry and he could corner him there. Sasuke almost grinned when he saw the blonde sitting in his seat. He was about to walk over before the teacher came in. She decided to give them a worksheet to work on with your lab partners. This time the raven did grin. It was all too perfect. So, Sasuke surprised the blonde with his smile. Let's talk. What happened with Kiba? Naruto frowned. He was just trying to be mean. And was he? The blonde gave a weak smile. More cruel than mean, but I was being difficult. What did he say? It doesn't matter. It's not true. Well, of course it isn't. But I need to know whether I should have punched him in study hall or not. Sasuke, Naruto frowned again. What are your interests? The Raven chuckled. Are you still trying to be supportive? Yes. What's going on in your life? What can I help with? Nothing. Sasuke frowned as he saw the disappointed look on the blonde's face. Okay, well, my dad took away my car. Oh, is the perfect prodigy son finally grounded? Naruto grinned. No. And that's not me, Itachi's the perfect one. The Raven chuckled. No, he's being difficult. He did try to compromise this morning and I think it's fair, but I really don't want to. Will he give you your car back? Yeah, but then do it. I mean, it's not something long-term, right? No, but then get it over with. You can do it, Sasuke. Naruto grinned at him, finally feeling like he was being supportive. Sasuke chuckled, shaking his head. You don't even know what he wants me to do. And I don't have to. I'm not trying to pry into your life. Whatever he's asking, it's best to just get it over with. The Raven smiled. All right, I guess I'll stomach it. The blonde grinned, obviously proud of himself. Let me be a bit supportive of you. Naruto shrugged. What's there to support? Confess. To what? Sasuke rolled his eyes. To the guy you like. Tell him how you feel. What? The blonde nearly fell out of his chair. No way. Sasuke, I have a plan and… Forget it. Whatever your plan is, it's not going to change the way he feels about you. The blonde frowned. Naruto, listen. If this guy is worth anything, he's already crazy about you. And if he's not, then he doesn't deserve you. Why are you being so nice? You're my best friend. And nothing's going to change that. I know you're scared of being rejected, but you won't be. Naruto gave him a wary look. And you'll still have me. I'll never reject you. The blonde could feel his face turning red and all of a sudden he couldn't look at Sasuke. They worked quietly till the end of class and then Sasuke pulled the other to where his brother was waiting for him. Naruto smiled at Itachi and made small talk as they drove the short distance to his apartment. Before getting out, the blonde paused, looking at Sasuke. What we talked about, I'll think about it. Sasuke grinned. He was probably getting too confident. And maybe a bit narcissistic, thinking he was the crush. But who else could it be? He was the one Naruto was flirting with. He's going to confess. Itachi's chuckling forced him to school his face back to its emotionless mask. Stupid brothers. Naruto was going to confess. Sasuke convinced him. Would he really not reject me? He was probably referring to friendship, not dating. Naruto shook those thoughts away. He had to think positive. Sasuke was right. He should just confess. And then if he didn't want to be anywhere near the blonde, well, he'd deal with that when it happened. As he neared the school, he saw Kiba standing outside with a pitiful look on his face. Sighing, the blonde walked over. Look. No. Don't say anything. I was wrong. And yeah, I got a bit fed up with all this because it was just so obvious that you're the person he likes. Kiba took a deep breath and before the blonde could say anything, he started again. And I completely understand and support your decision to go through that list before confessing. Naruto opened his mouth to speak but was interrupted again. And I never meant that comment. I was just being mean. The truth is, I'll be there for you no matter what. Of course you won't be rejected, but in the off chance that Sasuke goes completely mental and does reject you, I'll be there. Naruto waited a few minutes as the brunette caught his breath. Are you finished? After a nod from the other, the blonde grinned. I already knew all that. And I'm going to forget the list. I spoke with Sasuke yesterday and I'm going to confess today. No matter what happens. Kiba grinned, putting an arm on the blonde's shoulder. I'm proud of you, man. You've got this. Just as they turned to head inside the school, a flash of pink ran next to them, followed by a glaring raven. Sasuke and I are dating. Sakura announced in the loudest voice possible. The two friends stood shocked and looked towards Sasuke, who just glared. No, we're going on one date, on Saturday. And we'll see how it goes from there. The pink-haired girl squealed. Oh, I can't wait. This is going to be the start of the cutest couple Konoha High has ever seen. Naruto looked at the ground, feeling unshed tears sting his eyes. He blinked them away and put on his most convincing grin. That's great. Well, we better get to class. Come on, Kiba. Naruto. Wait, I have to tell you, Sasuke called after him as he walked away, but the blonde didn't turn. He just kept walking. It took everything he had not to run. Naruto. Kiba grabbed his arm, stopping him in the middle of a hallway. I don't know what to say. I never thought this would happen. I mean, who knew he'd actually go mental, and today of all days? The blonde gave him a pathetic chuckle and shrugged. I lied. I can't do it. Not today, maybe not ever. Hey, it's fine. The brunette smiled at him. You've got your list, remember? Just work your way through it. Stick to your plan. What's next? Naruto shook his head. I don't know. I didn't look, I was planning to. Okay, so today's a free day. You'll start up again tomorrow. The blonde nodded. Okay. He was avoiding him. Sasuke was sure of it. At lunch he made some excuse and left. During study hall he was in the nurse's office, and when Sasuke went to check on him he said he was fine and ran out. And now chemistry was almost over and the blonde was starting to pack his things. He was going to make a run for it. The Raven packed up his own bag and got ready for a chase. Naruto would listen to him. He'd tackle him to the ground if he had to. The bell rang, and they were off. Problem was, Naruto wasn't expecting Sasuke to chase him, so he got 3 steps out the door before the Raven was running into him. They crashed to floor and gave the students walking by a good laugh, but Sasuke had the blonde's arm in hand and he wasn't letting go. They walked out of the school to a quieter section before stopping. I have to go on this date with her to get my car back. What? Naruto glared. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, but it's true. The Raven glared back. And you're the one that encouraged me to accept. So now you're dating Sakura just to. No, I'm not. The Raven groaned at the situation. My dad wants me to be interested in her and marry her because it would be really good for the company, and her parents keep bugging him. But he's not going to force me to marry someone I don't like. So I have to go on this date with her, give us a try, and then if I don't like her, which I won't, he'll leave me alone about it. Naruto wasn't sure what he should be feeling. He was still sad, and jealous. And he also felt like an idiot now, but also very happy. But he couldn't let Sasuke know he was happy because he felt like crap the whole day and still did a little. So he just decided to be angry. You know, you could have explained that to me before. You were avoiding me. And what about yesterday? I didn't want to say it in chem. Someone could hear. And then there was my brother, and besides you said you would trust me no matter what. Yeah, well, you should have still told me. I was being an idiot, giving my support without knowing the whole situation. I could say the same. I encouraged you to confess and you still haven't told me who it is. I told you I have a plan. The blonde was screaming at this point and the Raven's was just getting louder to match it. And I told you to screw that plan and just confess. Yeah, and you know what, Sasuke? I did decide to confess. The Raven froze for a second, concentrating on keeping his smile from surfacing. The blonde was still angry and that would just make things worse. Okay, so when exactly do you plan to do it? The school day's already over. How do you know I haven't done it already? Naruto didn't know what he was even saying at this point, and the moment he saw Itachi walking towards him he turned and ran away. His brain was a mess, he needed to be alone for a bit. Sasuke didn't know what to do. It was like time stopped. He could feel Itachi pushing him towards his car. His brother may have tried to talk to him on the drive home, but he wasn't listening. He knew that he ate because he wasn't hungry. And before he knew it he was laying in bed, staring at his ceiling. Only one thought going through his mind. I'm not the guy. Naruto was sick. Literally sick. His head was spinning, nose running, and as he woke up that Monday morning he wasn't sure if he could stand. It's not that surprising. After Sasuke had asked Sakura out, the blonde went through the rest of the week brooding. He wasn't talking to Sasuke and Sasuke wasn't talking to him. The blonde groaned as he finally sat up and his head spun so bad he nearly laid back down. Being sick was the worst thing for Naruto. Ever since he was a kid he'd have to take care of himself whenever this happened. Taking a few deep breaths, the blonde closed his eyes and went through the things he needed to get done. First was school. He couldn't go. Getting his phone, he called Tsunade. He was lucky the principal of the school was someone that actually cared about him. And it also helped that she used to be a doctor. After a bit of arguing over why the blonde would let it get this bad, she told him what medicine to get and what he needed to do. If you get any worse, call me. I'll stop by after work to see how you're doing. Naruto nodded, confirming, okay, thanks. As he hung up, he dropped down on his bed. He would have to go out and buy the medicine Tsunade recommended. And orange juice and maybe some soup. He turned on his stomach and reached for this laptop, pulling up his list. Let him call me. The blonde pouted, well, wasn't he doing this the whole week? The blonde shook his head. His date had been on Saturday. They're probably officially a couple by now. He grumbled to himself. Not wanting to get up, the blonde shut his eyes. He knew he should be getting the medicine, or eating something, but he just couldn't be bothered. I'll give him one more day. Naruto snuggled in his pillow. If he calls, then I'll continue with the list. If not, he drifted off to sleep. I don't like her. I told you before the date and I'm telling you after the date. I don't like her. The raven glared at his father. I understand, and I'm not trying to be pushy. Are you sure? I mean, that entire date was planned by you. Sasuke, her parents have been calling. So tell them I'm not interested. They are very instant on this matter. I need to know you tried. This is something that. Fugaku. The raven's mother entered the room still in her pajamas. Are you still hassling Sasuke? He's going to be late for school. Yes, I know, dear, but just give it up. It's never going to work out with that girl. The woman shook her head at her now pouting husband. Sasuke likes someone else. Sasuke's eyes widened. What? Who? His father turned to him with a confused look. If you already liked someone, why didn't you tell me? He was stuck. He hadn't really come out to his parents yet. Not because they wouldn't understand, but mostly because he didn't want to seem like he was copying his older brother. Which he knew sounded stupid, but he was so tired of being compared to him. It's Naruto. His mother squealed. Sasuke could feel the blush enter his cheeks. How did she know? Itachi told me the other day. Oh, don't they make such a cute couple? I see. The eldest raven nodded. Sasuke, why didn't you tell me? All this time I've been pushing you towards Sakura because I didn't think you had an interest in anyone. If you'd just told me. I like him. That's it. We're not a couple. The raven glared, all of a sudden feeling the anger from everything his father put him through and the way Naruto has been acting the last few days. He might not even like me, and even if he did, what chance do I have now that Sakura's made sure the whole school knows about our date? And now I'm going to have her hovering all around me, and Naruto probably already thinks we're in love. I mean, he hasn't talked to me since he found out about it, and for all I know he's got himself a new boyfriend. Sasuke, no. Save it. Sasuke grabbed his bag and started heading for the door. He slammed it for emphasis and ran to his car. He needed to calm down. Right now it was like his fears were taking over. He wasn't the one Naruto liked. He'd let himself pretend and got carried away with it. And it hurt. Way more than he thought it would. And the last thing he wanted right now was to pull up to the parking lot in school and see some guy hanging off of Naruto. Or worse, Naruto hanging off of some guy. The raven shook those thoughts away. He only said he confessed. He took a deep breath. That doesn't mean they like him back. It was the mantra he repeated to himself since that first night of finding out about it. It was complete bull. After all, what kind of an idiot wouldn't be head over heels for the blonde? But it was all he had. And today at school, he'd explain how bad a date he had and have Naruto tell him everything about this guy. I'm not just going to let you walk into another man's arms. The raven said to himself as the school came into view. I'll drag you away from him if I have to. Being outside felt horrible. It wasn't a particularly chilly day, but Naruto felt freezing and boiling at the same time. As he entered the pharmacy, he leaned against the nearest shelf. His eyes were closing. Stay awake, he muttered to himself. Don't pass out. Taking a few deep breaths, he got some cough syrup and cooling pads before getting in line. As he stepped up to the register, the look the guy gave him told Naruto this was not going to be a pleasant experience. Hi. He tried to be as cheery as possible as he placed his things on the counter. I also need these pills. He handed the man the paper he wrote the name of them on. You don't have a prescription. The brunette stated matter-of-factly. My doctor told me I don't need a prescription for those. The man huffed. I can't just give anybody pills, you know. You could be using these to get high. The blonde was stunned. I'm sick. You don't look sick to me. The man glared. And I don't like your tone of voice. Get out of my pharmacy. I'll call the cops if I have to. Fine. Naruto snatched his paper back from the man and stormed out. He knew better than to pick a fight. Besides, he couldn't afford to get worked up. It felt like his legs would give out at any moment. The blonde had to go to a pharmacy an hour away from his apartment. By the time he reached it, one of the clerks had to walk him to the bus station because it looked like he would collapse at any moment. When he reached his stop, he started walking the path home and stopped by the grocery store on his way. Naruto dumped out his citrus fruits, juice and soup packets on his table, leaving the medicines in their bag. He opened up the juice and took big gulps. His head was spinning and he was a sweating, shaking mess. Making his way to his bed, he sat down and picked up his phone. He left it at home so he wouldn't be constantly looking at the screen. You have 1 missed calls. The blonde gasped and jumped up, almost toppling back down. Clicking the notification to see who called, his face fell the moment he saw Kiba's name written out. Damn it. Throwing the phone on his bed, the blonde started to pace, wobbling a bit on the way but catching his balance. School's half over. He can use his phone during lunch and study hall. Groaning, the blonde leaned against the nearest wall. He's probably so caught up with Sakura that he doesn't even notice I'm not there. He could feel himself sliding down the wall and didn't really have enough energy to stop himself. Maybe after some sleep he'd feel better. Sakura was like a leech. From the moment he got out of his car, she was attached to his arm. No matter what he tried, he couldn't shake her. All morning he was practically dragging her to his classes only to have her wait for him outside the door the second class was out. And worst of all, the Raven hadn't seen Naruto all day. Well, maybe that was a good thing. He wouldn't want the blonde to see him with the pink tumor hanging off of him. A pink tumor with a big mouth that wanted to inform everyone they passes that they were dating. And whenever Sasuke tried to correct her, she'd just start pulling him away. At lunch he had tried to get her away long enough for him to find Naruto and take him somewhere where they could talk, but the Dobi wasn't in the cafeteria. The blonde loves food. Where the heck would he be if not here? Maybe making out with his new boyfriend. The Raven shook the thought out of his mind. There was no way he would allow that. It was in study hall he found out that Naruto was sick and Kiba had been collecting his homework for him. Give it to me. Kiba glared at the pink girl next to him, then at the Raven. Why should I? You wouldn't want to waste your time going to Naruto's when. Yes, Kiba's right, Sasuke. Sakura leaned in close to whisper in his ear. There are so many other things we could do. Sasuke glared at her before pushing her away. We are not dating. I don't like you. The pink-haired girl had tears in her eyes. But Sasuke. Enough. The Raven turned to Kiba once more. Give me his homework. I'll get it to him. The brunette acted like he was thinking about it before handing him the work. You better get it to him. Of course I will. Sasuke smirked to himself. Why didn't he tell me he was sick? He mumbled to himself. He didn't tell anyone. The teacher in our first period told me. Kiba said. I tried calling him but he didn't answer. The brunette noted the worried look on the Raven's face and smirked. He must be really sick. I mean, he can't even lift a hand to answer a call or text. Sasuke bit his lip and took out his phone. Sakura glared at the worried look he had as he dialed Naruto's number. Just as Kiba had said, the blonde wasn't pick up. Why are you so worried about that moron? Sakura tried to slap the Raven's phone out of his hand. I'm the one you went on a date with. I'm the one you kissed. The room was silent for a few minutes, Sasuke glaring at the pink-haired girl, before Kakashi cleared his throat. I told you kids, when it's my turn for study hall you can do what you want as long as you're quiet. Miss Haruno, another outburst like that and I will be seeing you in detention. Sakura stood and walked out of the class. Everyone looked to Kakashi, who just shrugged and went back to reading his book. After another second the class returned to what they were doing. The Raven had just reached Naruto's apartment complex. Sitting inside the car he tried calling the blonde one more time. Shaking his head when he got the same result as all the other times. You better be home, you idiot. After all the times he called him, Sasuke started thinking maybe the blonde was over at some guys. Maybe he was just pretending to be sick. As he walked up to the apartment door, He rang the doorbell first before remembering it was busted and knocked. When he got no response he knocked again, harder this time. Still nothing. Naruto. Let me in. Sasuke knocked some more before trying the handle and opening the door to his surprise. He walked in and locked it behind him. Dobi, what are you doing leaving your door unlocked? Did you forget what kind of neighborhood? Sasuke froze when he walked into the bedroom and saw the blonde laying on the floor. Dropping his bag he rushed over to him. Kneeling down and pulling the blonde into his arms. His face was red and he could feel the heat radiating off of him. He definitely had a fever. And he must have been out since he was wearing his coat. Carrying him to his bed the Raven then proceeded to remove his coat. The blonde groaned and turned to his side. Yeah, well what do you expect when you fall asleep on the ground? Sasuke shook his head, inspecting the blonde further. You've completely sweat through your clothes. The Raven's eyes widened. You need to change. And if you can't wake up them I will have to change you. Shaking his head the Raven moved to the living room, leaving the blonde for a minute. He checked the contents of the bag and the items on the table, and started on making a soup. He also checked the medicine that the blonde obviously hadn't taken yet because none of them were open. What an idiot. As the soup was simmering he got a glass of water and some of the medicine and decided to try and wake the blonde. He sat on the bed next to him and tried to shake him awake. Come on Dobi, don't make me yell at you. Naruto groaned again and turned away from Sasuke. Leave me alone. No, you need to take your medicine and change. Then you can have some soup. Sasuke lifted the blonde up, resting him on his chest in a sitting position. Come on, don't you want to feel better? Naruto opened his mouth and Sasuke tipped the pills inside before tipping the cup of water. A lot of it just dripped out of his mouth but he swallowed the pills and that's all that mattered. Good, Sasuke said as he stood up and was glad to see Naruto sitting up on his own. The Raven moved to one of the dressers, pulling out some pajamas. Okay, I doubt you'll be able to wash yourself so just change out of your clothes for, his words got stuck in his throat as he turned around. The blonde had apparently decided he wanted out of his clothes and was now struggling to get his pants off his legs. When he got them off and moved to his boxers Sasuke threw the pajamas at him and ran out of the room. Sasuke groaned to himself, going to the kitchen to check on things. He wasn't sure why he freaked out like that. It wasn't the first time he'd seen the blonde naked. And it definitely wouldn't be the last, hopefully. He's sick. It's because he's sick and it isn't the time for those kinds of thoughts. Sasuke finished up the soup and poured a bowl for the blonde. He decided to let Naruto eat in bed. He entered the room and nearly dropped everything when he saw the blonde sleeping on his comforter completely naked. Are you freaking, Uck? He put the bowl down and made his way to Naruto, shaking his head at him in disappointment. I'm in love with an idiot. He shook the blonde a little before propping him up in a sitting position. Go, way, Misalipin. Yeah, I noticed. Completely naked. The Raven grumbled getting the pajamas he threw over from the floor. Do you want to make yourself sicker? Sasuke paused realizing he would have to dress the idiot. And that would require touching him, while he's naked. He shook his head and quickly pulled a pair of boxers on the other boy. Letting his hands rest on his hips for a second longer than was needed. With that taken care of he relaxed a bit as he continued. I'm supposed to be taking your clothes off not putting them on. Sasuke muttered to himself. Why? The question from the blonde startled him. Why do you think? Naruto shook his head. Don, wanna, Mahed Hjorts. Okay, the medicine just needs to kick in. Sasuke pulled the shirt on and nodded as he finished. Lean back and I'll get you some soup. Naruto nodded, leaning back onto some pillows and opened his mouth. The Raven inwardly groaned before lifting spoonful after spoonful to the other's mouth. So, Sasuke said, now that things calmed down and the blonde seemed awake enough, how did the confession go? Huh? Naruto looked at him confused as he swallowed the last spoonful. You know, you were talking about a guy you like and about confessing to him. Sasuke tried to act nonchalant about the whole thing but could tell he was failing. He just hoped the blonde was too sick to remember. Naruto just stared at him before tears started streaming down his cheeks. He shook his head. He doesn't like me. Sasuke was shocked. He didn't expect this kind of reaction. I'm so sorry, Naruto. I didn't realize, I don't know what I'm saying. He pulled the other into a tight hug. I love him so much. The blonde buried his face in the crook of his neck. So much. And he went. The Raven's chest ached. He was in love. He was in love with this other boy who didn't even care about him. You deserve more, Naruto. So much more. He won't even call. Naruto sobbed. Sasuke's arms tightened around the blonde. His heartbreak subsiding into anger. Who is it, Naruto? Who is this guy? He had to know. He had to find this guy, thank him for not liking Naruto back, and then beat the crap out of him for making his Dobi cry. Suke. Yes, I'm here, Naruto. The Raven gently rubbed the other's back. If you don't want to tell me, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Naruto was practically whispering now, but the Raven could still make out the words. Sasuke, I love him so much, Sasuke. The Raven was a bit irritated that he couldn't get a name, but maybe that was for the better. He would just end up hurting himself and Naruto more. I've got you, Dobi. Sasuke smiled down at the blonde, hugging him close. Screw that guy. You've got me. Naruto slowly calmed down and went limp against the Raven, lightly snoring. You'll get over him, and then you can find someone better right in front of you. And I'll never make you cry like this. Tsunade came shortly after the blonde went to sleep. She checked on him, gave Sasuke some orders about what medicine he should take next, and then left. She would be back in the morning before school started. The Raven was glad she didn't decide to stay. He always felt awkward around her, it probably had something to do with her being their principal. Naruto didn't wake up, even when he had to take his pills. Sasuke was able to rouse him enough to have him sit up and swallow them with a glass of water, but afterwards he was back down like it never happened. It was good. He needed the rest and his fever was going down. As it got later, Sasuke started to contemplate where he would sleep. The bed was taken but it could fit 2 people. And there was the couch, but he should be closer to Naruto, in case he needs something. It's not like it would be the first time they shared a bed together. If Naruto were awake he'd surely have no problem with it. The Raven had just about talked himself into it when his phone rang. It was ringing on and off throughout the day. Mostly his father, and Sakura. This time he was surprised to see his brother's name lighting up the screen. Hello. Hey, where are you? Mother and father are really worried. Right, sorry. The Raven sighed looking at the sleeping blonde. I'm at Naruto's. He got sick and I've been taking care of him. I see. Is he doing better? Yeah, much. His fever's pretty much completely gone. That's great. So you can leave, right? Why? Sasuke stuttered. Father wants to talk to you. Apparently you two had an argument this morning and now you've been dodging his calls. The Raven groaned. I'll see him tomorrow. I can't leave now. Why not? He's doing better, isn't he? Yes, but. And it's night now, and surely there'll be someone coming to check on him in the morning. What if? Sasuke, father's very insistent he speak with you. Yeah, because it's getting in the way of me and Naruto again. You know that's not his intention. Itachi sighed, getting tired of the conversation. Look, if he doesn't have a fever, you're coming home. Okay, the Raven smirked, I'll take his temperature now. Great, just make sure to let me in before you do. There was a knock on the door and the Raven hung up his phone. Of course, how could he have expected differently? As he opened the door he glared at the older Raven. I have my own car. I can drive myself. Great, I'll be right behind you. Itachi made his way to the bedroom, kneeling down next to the blonde. He sweat a lot, that's good. Where's the thermometer? Sasuke handed it to him and Itachi took the blonde's temperature. Look at that, Sasuke, you're a doctor in the making. He is fine. He will be fine on his own. Itachi says, standing to face his brother. As much as we all love calling him an idiot, he isn't one. He can take care of himself. He was passed out on the floor when I found him. Because he was tired from the fever. The fever is gone now. Thanks to you. He'll be fine until morning. You can see him again then. Itachi was being very insistent. What does Dad want? Why are you trying to drag me out of here? He spoke with Miss Haruno and her parents. He was hoping you would be there as well, but what was he talking about with them? How could he? Sasuke groaned, turning to grab his stuff. Can he not just stop messing with my life for one day? He scribbled on a piece of paper what the blonde needed to take once he woke up and left the note on his bedside table. Sasuke grabbed the spare key so he could lock up and followed his brother outside. It was a long drive home. His brother following behind him. It was all just making him furious. I swear to God, if he's arranged my marriage, I am disowning myself. The Raven muttered to himself as he pulled into his driveway. The moment he walked in, his father was there to greet him. What did you do? Sasuke snapped at him. Sasuke. His mother's scolding tone was the only thing that calmed him down. Or more like her presence. The Raven knew if she was here he wouldn't be forced into anything he didn't want to. It's okay, Makoto. Why don't we sit down and talk? The elder Raven motioned towards his study. Itachi and his mother nodded and went to the other room. Sasuke scoffed. Don't want them here so you can. Sasuke, it would seem that through my involvement in your love life I have become the villain. Rightfully so, as it was never something I should be meddling with. Fugaku sat down next to Sasuke on the small couch instead of at his desk. I hope you know that was not the case or my intention. It was actually the Harunos who brought it up first. They called to inform me that you went to school with their daughter and that she was quite fond of you. So of course I thought perhaps you and her. I told you I didn't like her. And I should have listened to you, but I got caught up in what could happen, and the Harunos would call with other plans, and I didn't know you preferred, you have had girlfriends. Many of which were very similar to Sakura, so I thought, never mind that. Fugaku paused for a moment. I deeply apologize for any of the trouble I might have caused you. You are my son and all I want is for you to be happy with whoever you choose. You know that your mother and I love you no matter. I know. Then why not tell us? Itachi is. I know. I just thought it wasn't a big deal. Sasuke slouched on the couch, not looking at his father. Okay. Well, you could have at least told us about Naruto. You know we all love him. There's nothing to tell about him. Are you sure? Itachi mentioned you were at his place today and were planning on staying the night. Yeah, cause he is sick. Sasuke, Fugaku waited until his son turned to look at him. I spoke with the Harunos and we decided to let you and Sakura decide what you want. They were a bit reluctant, but eventually understood these are your lives. We will not get involved, and if one of you decides they don't want this, then that's that. Sakura didn't seem too happy about it and she even made a speech about not giving up on you. Sasuke rolled his eyes, but at least you won't need to worry about anyone else butting in. And as far as Naruto is concerned, there's nothing. I already told you. He likes someone else. Yes, maybe he does. And maybe it's because he doesn't now you like boys too. The elder Raven spoke with a scolding tone. Sasuke, if you never tell people something, how are they to know? We're not mind readers. If you are gay, or bi, or whatever, you have to say so. And if you like Naruto, you have to tell him. You didn't see him today. Oh please. We've all been seeing him for years now. He's been smitten with you since you were both in diapers. You're the one we thought wasn't interested. Sasuke pouted, muttering to himself. We didn't know each other when we were in diapers.